Hi everyone. As promised, today's talks on part 2 of 2, symbiosis and religion. So I want to revisit 2 of the 5 major symbiotic relationships that we talked about in the last talk. 1, the parasitical symbiotic relationship, and 2, the mutualistic symbiotic relationship. And a parasitical relationship is typically defined as one where a foreign object becomes the guest of a host and harms the host, typically feeds off the host. And a mutualistic symbiotic relationship is understood as a win-win situation where both parties or multiple parties are benefited from the relationship, similar to birds acting as pollinators and spreading pollen for flowers, and the birds also feed off the pollen of the flowers, so that's mutualistic. It's win-win. So I want to dive right into parasitism. It's kind of a funny word, right? There's a lot of controversy in describing the human relationship in the womb of our mothers as parasitical, but that's exactly what it is. Our origin story begins as a guest to the host of our mother's hub. This is the very definition of a parasitical relationship. For reasons unknown to me, biology books like to say that parasitical relationships are negative and exist only to hurt the host, and it's only foreign objects that are parasitical relationships, which is the furthest from the truth possible. So I'd like this talk a lot is about reframing what we think of parasitical relationships, and perhaps we need to have 2 different types of parasitical relationships defined. So as I noted in my last video, the victim and the host are the exact same thing. And it's from our mother's great energy, her raw Shakti feminine power, and her resources that she sacrifices for all of us, her children, to take up space within her very own body so that we can all germinate and have life. We all know that in the early stages of our gestation, we would die outside of her womb, so we are completely dependent on the resources of our mothers. In the Hermetic classic book, The Kabbalion, the law of gender states that all things have both masculine and feminine attributes, and all things need time to gestate and grow. It is within this realm of gestation and growth that I focus my talk today. Many people say that a baby does no harm to the mother when she's pregnant, and this is a spit on the face of all mothers and a complete blasphemy on the altar from which she serves as the vessel of gestation for each and every one of us to have life here on earth. It is she who sacrifices her very essence to bring life into the world. To belittle the energetic and bodily sacrifice that all mothers perform to give us life is a great sin, as in a great misunderstanding and missing the mark of our true grace. Because, as we have come to learn and understand, we live in a party of symbiosis where life feeds on life. And we all feed on the life force of our mothers in order to come here and we deplete her energy and resources. Therefore, we harm her. We're not foreign species within her body, but we are a foreign entity in her body. We are separate from her. So that's also to be noted. So back to babies forming a parasitical relationships to their mothers. Did you know that the uterus is the only organ in the human genome that can grow another organ? And what is this organ? The placenta. The very tree of life from which we all get nourished and fed in our mother's wombs. So let's revisit the enormous amount of sacrifice a woman endures as a heroine for life to exist in this world. She sheds her unfertilized egg and blood endometrium lining every lunar cycle so that new potential life can be given the opportunity to grow. I'll put this back on later. On average, a woman gives this world 13 opportunities a calendar year to give life a chance to enter the earth portal. Wow, 13 a year. And she bleeds as a sacrifice in dogmatic terms as a victim to be the host of life. Remember, we literally call the Eucharistic wafer the host. If her ovum is fertilized by lovely daddy sperm, which is the divine spark that we just talked about in the law of gender from the daddy, then for the baby to begin to germinate, he or she must burrow into the endometrium lining of his or her mother and eat her bloody flesh until a placenta becomes fully grown. That takes about 3 months for the placenta to fully grow. I'm greatly oversimplifying this process in the womb in the first trimester, but for this talk, the point is that we feast on the resources of our mother's body when we are in her womb. Did you know that the fatigue and morning sickness that's typically a part of the early pregnancy time period in the first trimester is normally from her superpower to grow an entire grocery store to feed her baby or babies? I call the placenta a giant grocery store. Again, I want to feel into this paradox here. That the mother is simultaneously harmed and gives great sacrifice so that we may be born. And this is a great honor. Most women in the early stages, though, are in a weakened state because most of their bodily resources are being redirected and regenerated to feed her baby or babies. This is extraordinary sacrifice. It's extraordinary prayer. And if that isn't enough, she must also start making space for the baby and move her organs all around and shift her entire body around for the baby to take up space and grow within her very body, at the expense of her freedom and the full autonomy of her body. And then women must give birth to this baby. I know it sounds, for scientific purposes, the parasite, right? Okay, because now we're like, you're no longer in there. You're a foreign object. You need to come out. And we all know that most labors are very painful. There are a few exceptions to this. And then we produce a bunch of milk to further feed our babies. I mean, come on, it just keeps going and going and going. And just because this happens all over the world every day, thousands of times a day, that women are giving birth and getting pregnant, doesn't make this any less miraculous. So perhaps, step back here for a second. I want to reframe this, that there really is nothing mutualistic about the relationship when a mother gets pregnant in the realm of matter. It's all parasitical. She's very depleted of her resources. And in the definition of harmed, yeah, she sacrifices a lot of who she is to bring this baby or babies into the world. But in return, she becomes a mother. And the mutualistic symbiosis comes into us through what I call the spiritual gifts of the Holy Spirit, the spiritual gift of love, unconditional love, and infinite love. And we get this love from our children after we birth them. They love us unconditionally. The love of a child in the early stages like that is pure innocence and pure infinite love. And for all of you that don't know me personally, I have 2 sons, and I lost a baby and miscarried, so I've been pregnant 3 times. My sons are 9 and 8. And the woman is given she gets the gift of giving life, giving fatherhood to the father. She also she has that gift of making a father, giving him the gift of fatherhood. So we also can reframe it in that sense, as she gives him that gift of fatherhood. So the mutualistic aspects of becoming a mother are very, there is mutualism here. It's not fully parasitical. It's not all harm. We gain so much by becoming mothers. We gain in our capacity to love. We gain in our capacity to grow as our own human beings. We gain in our capacity to give. We gain in our capacity to commune and be with this ability to unconditionally love. So, but I also want us to recognize that in the matter form, in the bodily relationship, in our mother's wombs were very parasitical. And this is important because dogmatic institutions like the Vatican have created a parasitical relationship with their followers in mimicking the relationship that we have in our mother's wombs. So I'm hyper-focusing and reframing in this talk our perspective on the gift of gestation that each of our mothers give as a great sacrifice in order for all of us to live. And if we don't see it as an understanding the paradox that she is giving sacrifice, therefore she's harmed, we devalue and we belittle, or we just don't acknowledge, we ostracize this great gift that she's doing. So we currently live in a worldwide culture that dramatically favors masculine force and a masculine understanding of hero sacrifice over the feminine forces and the feminine understanding of sacrifice. So the goddess has returned after many years, millennia underground, to bring us back into union with both our beautiful forces, the masculine and the feminine. And it starts with re-honoring the great sacrifice that our mothers all give to give us life. It is our literal origin of all love as human beings. When we come out, we project the origin understanding of love onto our mothers. They are goddess. We project a love that's feminine when we are born. We are projected to, really. So there's another example in Mother Nature of a parasitical mutualistic relationship between the mother host tree and truffles, also known as fruiting bodies. So I wanted to explore another relationship that's similar to ours in the womb that's found in nature, to explore other examples of this in our existence here on Earth. So why truffles? My family and ancestors harvest truffles in Italy, and I've spent a lot of time getting to know them and understanding their process. So I've learned quite a bit from them after studying truffles for many years. And they've been great guides for me in understanding symbiosis, to be honest. So, and a really fun side note here is that in my spiritual awakening, the Buddha has appeared to me often as a truffle. And he's fat. He's that fat, charming, giggling, laughing Buddha. Have you seen those statues? Those are my favorite version of the Buddha. And he visits me in that state, and he tells me that he became enlightened under a tree, not because he was at the tree per se, but because he plugged into the tree, his mother hub, just like the truffles do. And what he meant by this was that he plugged back into her unconditional infinite love and her perpetual nourishment of our origins that is represented within the womb of our mothers. So he's chubby and smiling because he's so well loved and nourished by his mom. And so we all know that fungus in the form of psychedelic mushrooms they're very important messengers of the spirit realms for us. And the real irony is that mushrooms are very earthy. So they're made of earth, right? So it's a fascinating paradox to me that the fungus spirit, the medicine of mushrooms, and truffles are technically not mushrooms, so you'll hear me call them a fungus. They teach us how to merge spirit with matter, quite literally. So I've never used psychedelic mushrooms. I have only gleaned spiritual knowledge from truffles, porcini, morels, and other delicacies of the forest because I also used to sell truffles and morels and porcini for 7 years. So I was a broker of their ways, and I got to commune with them in a little bit of a different way than most people would experience. And it's becoming more and more legal to dabble in psychedelic mushrooms, which is a very interesting movement going on right now. It's becoming much more mainstream in awareness of the spiritual journeys that psychedelic mushrooms gift us. So let's revisit the tree relationship with the truffle and how it's similar to a human relationship in our mother's womb. So technically the truffle is a fruiting body of a subterranean fungus known as a tuber. So a truffle is a byproduct of many different circumstances that are still quite mysterious to this day, like how a truffle is formed. And the truffle forms a parasitical mutualistic relationship and then colonizes the root system of its host mother tree, providing increased water and nutrient capabilities to the tree while the tree gives the truffles carbs and nutrients. Scientists believe that this relationship is about 60-40%, and that the mother tree gives 60% to the truffle fruiting bodies to the 40% that the truffles give. So this actually constitutes, by definition of biology, a minor harmful relationship to the tree, which is parasitical, and a more advantageous relationship for the truffle. And that's what they call it. Both a parasitical mutualistic relationship, because the truffle does give, the truffle gives increased nutrient capabilities and water to its mother host tree. So she is getting benefits, but not as much as she benefits the truffle. So I always thought this was a really interesting relationship because it mimics a lot. It's not mimicking, it's just another example of a similar relationship found in Earth here in nature, similar to how we're formed in the womb. So I love studying fungus because I'm coming into a great renaissance of understanding science and converging my spirituality with the knowledge of biology and science. I came from more the spiritual background, and now I'm converging it with scientific knowledge. And I'm a huge fan of Paul Stamets. He is a mushroom guru, and you can follow a lot of his work. He lives out in Washington State. And I am still fleshing out a lot of my knowledge on how we as human beings are more related to the fungus kingdom than any other kingdom here on Earth. And I've been trying to research more information on this, but that's one of his statements that he makes, and he has studied extensively mushrooms. So I could probably devote my whole life to studying that, but I'm trying to understand that better. But I am putting that out there today on this video that according to Paul Stamets and mushroom mycologist specialists, we are more related to the fungus kingdom than any other kingdom on Earth, over plants and even animals. So they say. I'm verifying this claim as I go along. So when I found that out, I thought, oh wow, that even makes more sense why truffles are speaking to me so prominently. And I understand them so much. So, and to circle back and to conclude our talk, I want to bring about a renaissance of re-honoring our mother's great sacrifice so that we can come into this earth. And realign ourselves to honoring the gifts of the feminine from our origin stories that we all share as human beings, including women. So I'm committed to clearing the air on our beautiful origins as a huge part of my movement. #TheFeminineTouch. You are invited to join the movement below by signing up to receive a free copy of my romance novella. It's titled The Blossoms of Beltane. As a priestess, I have many Shakti soul gifts to share with this world. One of them is long lectures about philosophy, spirituality, and science. And another one is my gift of writing smutty romance novels. I'm a storyteller, but I never was really resonant with science fiction, or I loved historical fiction, but it was interesting because I go, what kind of stories do I love to tell? And I love to tell romance stories. I always have since I was a child. So I've decided to write romance novels as my free gifts in welcoming people to join the #FeminineTouch movement, and also in a prayer and a devotion to love, passion, and pulsating pleasure, all these great gifts of the feminine. And also they're great gifts of the masculine too. It's in devotion to Eros. It's in devotion to our pulsating blood, the very essence of our blood is the drum that beats our body and keeps our bodies going. And so my welcome gift to you is the prologue. The rest of the novel it's a little novella, is coming soon. I have the prologue up, and all you gotta do is click on the link below. I've listed it right there in the comments. So also, if you like this talk and my teachings resonate with you, please like and subscribe and share with anybody you think that this would resonate with. You have no idea what this means to me. We're in the very nascent stages of the movement, and the more we spread the word, the better. So please consider joining #TheFeminineTouch, and I welcome you along. And thank you so much for listening.